We're turning into women. All of you motherfuckers are turning into women. Can we fucking stop?
Bro, that's like the big wake-up call to every incel out there. It's like, you're just doing the same thing that you're blaming the others for, and no one's getting better. Stop.
No, let's go for the real clickbaity title. Motherfuckers, you're turning into your mom. The person that you resent and hate the most in this world. The person that drove your dad away from you for you being a normal human being. You're turning into them. Hello, everybody. How you doing? This is Real Men Talk Shit. And holy God, it feels like it's been 3-4 weeks since we recorded, but it's only been 2. Verlis, how you been, buddy?
I just woke up. I'm getting ready for like all the Elden Ring DLC, Pal World, gaming. I'm very tired. Have my G Fuel ready. We are waking up and we're going to have a great podcast.
And this is Ralph from Dad's Starting Over. So I found your channel on Facebook probably like 6-7 months ago. And I've been absolutely struggling with a lot of this shit, actually. Some of it I can't talk about, obviously, because, court and all that shit. But it was really, really interesting to find somebody else who was so clear-headed and actually direct with, this is how you have to deal with these things. There is no other answer. It's kind of very black and white. And if you are in a gray area situation, things can be worked on. It was weird because so many other people, whether it's lawyers or not, are so hard stance with, oh, you just have to deal with everything the hardest level you possibly can. So it was nice. It was nice seeing somebody else with such a level head in this situation.
Well, good. I'm glad. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, when I started YouTube, I started out watching this guy named Woody's Gamertag. He's now my boss. And he kind of like gave a guide on how to be like a teenager turning into a man, and it was nice to kind of like come into this myself and be like, okay, well, that's what I want to do. I want to kind of help guys be the people that they need to be and kind of have a way to sound off whenever they want to. And then I saw your channel. I was like, oh, look, somebody who's doing the same thing in a very shitty situation, in a very similar situation to I'm in. And now all of a sudden you're growing and exploding too. So that was really, really interesting to kind of just have that connection there.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Appreciate it a great deal.
Absolutely, man. So I have a whole bunch of topics here and a whole bunch of things, but I do want to talk about this website that you're launching and working on and stuff like that. I found it rather interesting because it's kind of the same thing. It's not necessarily content, but it's a way for men to actually have guidance on how to do things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I've been working under the Dad Starting Over moniker, name, brand, whatever you want to call it, for years now. It all kind of took off when I wrote a book about 7 years ago. The first edition of it came out, and that book was about the topic of sex and marriage. So I wrote on a lot of different stuff. And as soon as I talk about the old sex, of course, things kind of explode, sex sells.
Yeah, always.
And then I wrote a book called The Dead Bedroom Fix, which is one guy's musings on the married sex life, why it tends to, and why is it once we're out of marriage, we're like, well, this is so much better, and everything that goes along with it. And that really struck a nerve with a lot of guys. And I brought a lot of guys to my material. And so much so that I wrote other books. I started a private men's group that we called the DSO fraternity. And then I brought on other gentlemen. We have myself and 6 other guys on the team that do coaching, mentoring, counseling for men. And we get together in private forums and Zoom meetings and all kinds of cool stuff. And then we realized, though, that it was a bit of a roadblock for people the name Dad Starting Over. Because you'll have a guy that'll be watching my stuff, and his friend will say, like, man, I think my wife was cheating on me. He's like, oh, I got material for you. Here, check it out. And he'll show him my stuff. And the guy goes, first of all, I'm not a dad. I'm not starting over. I'm not getting divorced. No. It's like, well, we just lost a guy, right? Just the brand is, an obstacle. And so we're like, we need to come up with something a little bit more inclusive, something a little bit wider reach. We want to help more men. I wonder, is helpformen.com available? And it was. And so we grabbed it.
Branding is so easy some days.
Had to pay a little bit of money for it. Not much.
No one else has like tried to find that where it's like help for men. It's obvious people and men need help. And that also goes into the RMTS. Like, we talk shit, but also a part of being a man is also just like everything about accepting who you are.
Talking shit.
Yeah.
It's really funny because how many times are you growing up or in the city, oh, snitches get stitches and you talk shit, you get hit. And it's like, no. The real man is the one who's talking shit to your face the one who's able to say the problem, the one who's able to actually come to you with what's going on. That's a man. You running behind a closed door and saying shit behind somebody's back, that's not talking shit. You're just running your mouth. And that does end badly in most cases.
And so we are moving. All the books are now sold under Help for Men as opposed to Dad Starting Over. Our private group has been renamed from DSO Fraternity to the HFM Brotherhood. And so we're
That's
doing
cool.
All of business basically is under Help for Men brand. We're hoping to bring more content creators on board and doing like an affiliate program to help grow our private group. And then Dad Starting Over, still spewing out content. I'm still a content creator under that name that has a lot of cachet, and it's kind of taken off, and it's 6-figure followers on YouTube and Facebook and others. So I don't want to just drop it and say go over here instead. So I'm still doing stuff under that. We have another brand that we're slowly starting to ramp up called Real Sexy Marriage, which was just kind of a takeoff on the Dead Bedroom Fix stuff. And some of our guys in the group, they want to do their own thing and have their own YouTube channel, but still be a part of Help for Men and bring guys into the group. And so we're hoping to expand the web and help more and more gentlemen all over the place.
Well, that's definitely the best way to kind of go about it, honestly, is just trying to reach out and help as many people as you possibly can. And that's why I thought it was so cool. I was like, there's a lot of people that need this, whether they don't want to go to therapy or whether they just want like some sort of camaraderie, because that's what a lot of people need is after high school. Like, think of how many friends you've grown since high school. You might have gotten one or two dudes from college, or you might still have one dude hanging around from high school, but you disconnect from a lot of people. And it seems like as the world turns now, that's happening more and more, unless that is your gaming buddy or it's the dude you hang out and talk with every single Friday. Like my brother, he messaged me the other day. He's like, congratulations. Sitting there talking for 5 minutes. I was like, okay, so we're going to talk every Sunday. And that's my brother. That's like my best friend. That's the person I used to talk to all the time. If he gets busy, shit doesn't happen. There's no conversation for months and months and months. So unless there's availability for that, like, you lose a lot of people. You lose everybody.
Absolutely.
So I think these groups that a lot of people are making now are so impactful and helpful for guys, especially because that's how we heal.
Absolutely. The couple of different things that I hear often from men. One is my job, or a career opportunity, or my wife, or sometimes ex-wife's family pulled me away from my extended family that I had, extended friend network, and we moved from Illinois to California or something like that. And ever since moving there, I don't have many close friends, hardly any at all, no family support, et cetera, et cetera. That's something I hear quite often. And then a lot of guys, it's what you just said. Man, I had the college or high school buddies. And then as soon as I got married, had kids and everything else, some guys, to their credit, they try. I reached out to Joe and said, hey, Joe, you want to get together like next week and, beers or something? I can't. I got soccer, I got a baseball thing I got to go to, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm wife's thing. And you do that week after week after week. And eventually you're just like, this ain't going to happen. And then I've had guys that they don't hang out with other men. How long has it been? Shit, I don't know, years. That's sad.
Or you get the wife's friend's husband who you sort of get along with, but he's
casual.
Yeah. And it's weird because I had that conversation with my wife for such a long time. And it was, oh, you took my friends from me. You made me choose. And it's like, no, we built a life together at 16. Like, there's only so much time during the day where you can grow and build something internal to deal with this situation, and then also be around other people. So it's like, you're not making me choose. I'm not making you choose, but we're choosing to spend that time together at that point. So, and it's really hard to kind of not put that blame on somebody else. It's really easy to be like, you made all my friends walk away. You made them. It's like, no, shit happens. Everybody's so fucking busy nowadays. It's like Facebook group chats or Discord DMs are like the only place most people talk now, and it's crazy.
Yeah, in that part of our human nature, our makeup, and this is something a lot of men are resistant to for whatever reason. A lot of men like to love the whole notion of them. I'm the lone wolf. I really don't need other people in my life. I'm good on my own. Thank you very much. But it's part of our human makeup is that we need to socialize in order to maintain our sanity.
I think guys want to feel like they're the leader. And that's the big thing is like, oh, I'm the lone wolf. I'll just guide myself. And it's like, you go to your dad, buddy. You go to your grandpa, buddy. You're not a lone wolf.
Yeah.
You still have the hierarchy. regardless of how alpha or non-alpha you are, you still are going to have some circle of people around you.
It's
And it's just
also,
like,
yeah, hyper independence where it's like I can do everything and I don't need anyone else to do anything else. It's like, yeah, but you still need to socialize. Even the pack leader in an actual wolf pack, they're all socializing. They're always like fighting for that or working together to then build the pack even more. It's like, oh wait, elsewhere just disproves that. Where it's like, yeah, the rest of nature is doing great without this. Oh, I'm only me and mentality.
It's we have annual gatherings in the States and in Australia for our members group. And when guys get together, and I've seen them, the energy from just getting together with other men and talking about stuff, men leave those groups, those meetings, and they're ready just to run through a wall. They're just ready to tackle the world, and they're exchanging numbers and, you know, text messaging back and forth with guys. Let's get together, blah, blah, blah. Just the energy from just interacting with other humans that are on the same path as you. That's
energy. Yeah.
extra important.
It's so weird because most of the time we record the show 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm energized until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because it's like normally that's my normal time to be awake until 2 o'clock in the morning anyway. But I'm like at 2, 3 p.m. levels of energy, and I'm like, oh God, I'm just so happy. Whether it's finishing up work or this, and I'm like, oh, I'm so energized because it's like, oh, people around. It's like I'm not somebody who just doesn't want to talk and just doesn't want to interact. And it's like having people around that want to hear what I want to say or want to giggle at my jokes. That shit is so fucking awesome. And it's like,
Yep.
guys, if you just don't feel as anxious as you possibly could, just calm yourself a little bit to make the joke when you feel it. Most people accept it. It's just hard to get that point across to just make the joke. And some people just don't get it.
You know, one illustration of the point of the importance of socializing with other humans is in prison, solitary confinement in some countries is considered a form of torture, and it is illegal to take a human and put him in a zone for an extended period of time in one little room because we go nuts. We literally lose our marbles when we're away from other humans for too long. It's an extreme example, but that shows you.
It's funny, like me and you, we're dads. Think about 24 hours alone. That sounds great. Now think of 24 days. You're going to go crazy because it's just like, I'm so used to being needed. I'm so used to being wanted, or even just having the little conversation of, Dad, can you help me get breakfast? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, think of how many things just wouldn't happen and you're in there with your thoughts. Could I do that for 2 days? Yeah, because I would figure a lot of shit out. But after that point, I'm going to go fucking nuts.
If you haven't watched a lot of the episodes, which we wouldn't blame you for, Zach, whenever he talks about his kids, lights up. Like, talk about Mortal Kombat with his kids. Whenever his kids do something stupid or have something to talk about, like he even me bringing up how he lights up is lighting him up right now. So like you can tell how much that means to him.
Well, honestly, like my kids have been my life since I was 16. So like it's there's no difference now. It's like I wanted to walk across the stage with my daughter. They wouldn't let me. It's like it's my kid. I graduated high school with a fucking kid. How many people can fucking do that? They can't. There was 15 people that dropped out in between when I had a kid and graduation. I walked across the stage and my daughter was sitting in the seats. It's like most people can't do that. But cool thing happened with my youngest. She's finally starting to play video games and kind of like understanding, but not fully understanding. She's just about 4. And she's completely enticed by Lego Jurassic Park. And it came in like a bundle game, so there's like 5 or 6 games in the entire thing. She's beaten 2 of them, essentially by herself, because it's like problem solving. She's just able to, oh, Dad, how do I do this? Show her. She goes back and does it like 3 or 4 times and then just understands. It is so weird watching how excited she got when I said, congratulations, it's done. She's like, Daddy, what do I do now? Well, you beat it. You be part of it. Like, what more do you want me to tell you? Like, it's so cool. It's so cool watching them just kind of grow and do the things that they're supposed to do and enjoy something that, you know, it's like, oh, most 10-year-olds can't do that. Good job.
Yeah. Kids these days are getting so much more advanced. I have my youngest is 3. She'll be 3 here soon. And yeah, watching her do a lot of the things, with dexterity and thinking things through and problem solving. I don't know if the humans are just being born more intelligent right out of the box, so to speak, or what it is, but we're consistently amazed. And she's duolingual. She speaks, my wife's
Wow.
German, so she speaks German and English now
Whoa,
as a 3-year-old. It's like,
that's
okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
Zach, widescreen.
Widescreen. Okay. The dog's smacking you.
Yep, dog's bothering me.
I saw some fur in the
hmm
look at the look on his face. He's just like, now play? No, not now.
She likes bothering me a lot when I start recording. Huskies, that's just it.
It's
Is that
so
a husky?
funny, man.
Yep.
It's so funny how intelligent they actually are, because it seemed for so long like everything was so disconnected for kids. Like when my oldest was born, it was starting to become the time where you handed your kid a tablet and that's about all they did. So like it's kind of like learning the difference in what parenting was then and what parenting is now. Like even with COVID, she was a NICU baby and then COVID happened. So she's had zero kind of human interaction until preschool started. But she has grown so quickly and done so much that it's absolutely insane. That's hilarious. It's so weird how quick they actually grow, because she, for so long she was told, oh, autistic. Okay. But autistic doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. It could mean that she's hyper intelligent and ahead of everybody in most ways, or it could mean that she's not able to do anything. It's like, you guys can't just keep putting labels on kids. Just let them do their shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. In my group, I did a presentation on the majority, and that's not fair. A lot, an unusually large portion of men in our private group are neurodivergent, which means ADHD, autism spectrum, OCD, and so forth. And I just said, out of curiosity, in this group, the guys who showed up to the meeting, how many of you have been formally diagnosed with one of these? 90% of the 90% of them raised their hand. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's not what I expected.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
More people are finding these things out and like, wait a second, maybe I should actually get a formal diagnosis instead of saying like, oh, I'm this, like everyone on Twitter that just like fills out their bio when they're just like, oh, I've seen people say this, I'm this, treat me different. But then when you actually get the formal diagnosis, now you can actually work on improving yourself.
The thing is you don't have to treat anybody differently. It's not your job to. And I am formally diagnosed with ADHD very, very severely. And I have OCD, and I was literally just talking to my therapist about autism last week. I was like, I was found to be highly gifted in kindergarten. They were going to skip me grades because they're like, Zach's just ahead. I knew multiplication tables before I went into kindergarten. They're like, he knows the stuff. And just put him ahead. They decided not to. And it's like, those labels literally mean so little in the grand scheme of things that, okay, you don't understand human emotion as well as everybody else does. Most people don't. Most people just assume and hope that they're right. The thing is if you treat those people or you treat those labels as there's some big thing that, oh, you can't be mean to this person because they're autistic. No, if you're an asshole, I'm going to be mean. Like there's just no connection there. Like you being autistic is not the reason why you're nice or mean. It doesn't matter that way. And so many people want to use every little thing that they are or labeled as a way to like shield or protect criticism. And it's just not fucking true.
But one way, though, something like a formal diagnosis can help is like, but the guys, for example, in my group, you look at that and you say, what does this mean? Does this mean like most of the guys in the general public are on the autism spectrum, whatever? No, it's just the population of men that I attract tend to have relationship problems.
Yep.
People that are neurodivergent, men or women, tend to have relationship problems. So therefore, I'm going to get a disproportionately large portion of people in my population.
And those people will absolutely find solace in having an ability to conversate about the problems that they're struggling with, because that's the only way that they learn. They learn by actually having somebody walk them through something or understanding and being able to talk through it quicker than somebody who's just trying to run their life through flying by the seat of their pants and hoping that everything works.
Exactly.
Most guys that are autistic or ADHD or anywhere in that spectrum are just going to be able to plan and focus and put themselves through the ringer of being able to do it. It's just actually learning how to plan and focus and go through those steps. And it's backwards. Most people want to just say, okay, well, those people know more. They're going to be the CEOs and everything else. They have everything figured out. And no, most don't. Most people don't
No.
understand.
No, exactly right. And you're right. If you have somebody to talk to about it, an expert in the field, medical expert, whatever it may be, they may be able to give you real tools that you can use to help excel in whatever the discipline may be, whether it's your personal romantic relationships, professional, whatever it may be.
It also seems like it's not just dealing with somebody that has expertise in the thing, like your dead bedroom book or anything like that would be a guide, but somebody who's dealt with it and then also has the same problems or can perceive your problems is completely different. And I think that's where a lot of people with those problems look for help, because they don't understand. They can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes. Some people can, some people can't. A lot of people will be like, oh, that's narcissistic. No, it's not. It's part of the problem. It's why it's an issue, is they can't perceive themselves in other people's shoes, or they can't explain for other people to be in theirs. It's like you have to be able to explain yourself, or you have to be able to see the other side, because if you can't do either, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, it's one of the most common things for people on the autism spectrum, men especially, is that they are labeled as narcissistic by their loved ones. Like, he just doesn't care. It's like, no, he has a very difficult time empathizing and reading the room, so to speak, and so forth. He just needs a little help in that way.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, guys are told to be quiet. Guys are told not to show emotion. And then they flip out when you do show emotion, because it's not the emotion they expected. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a game to them almost. It seems like in a lot of ways, especially if they don't understand you completely. It's flipping back and forth. They're going to, oh, I can push you to this emotion. How do you react? Oh, I'm emotionless because I don't show you that I'm dealing with something. You want me to be able to be your floor. That's how guys have been told for how many years? Oh, I have to be your floor. I have to hold you up to make sure that you're emotionally taken care of. So if you want my emotions shown, you better catch me when I show them. Okay, you're not going to do that, then why am I showing anything? And once guys see that, they don't want to show anything anymore. They don't want to show anything to anybody. And it's just a cycle.
Yeah.
And it's hell.
Very common sentiment amongst a lot of somebody summarized it in one of the comments in one of my videos. Please be vulnerable. Woman says, please be vulnerable and share your feelings with me. Man shares feelings. Woman's response is, no, not like that. We've all seen some semblance of that. And I actually outlined that scenario in my book, The Dead Bedroom Fix, where the woman says, I'm your wife. You're supposed to open up to me, for goodness sakes. Just tell me what the hell's going on. The man emotes about whatever. And the woman says, I'm going to need time to process this. No, don't touch me. Just leave me alone for a bit. And the message is clear. She's unable to deal with the onslaught of all this emotion that comes out. Now, in her defense, for a lot of guys, especially our more anxious guys, we bottle and bottle and bottle. And then when we're finally like, all right, here you go, it's a avalanche. It's not just, I'm concerned about my job at work. The boss is hammering down on people and yada, yada. It's, I'll deal with it. It's just, I'm sorry if I'm seem tense. It's just, I'm dealing with that at work right now. Oh, okay, cool. He's on top of it. Everything's cool. Fine. Versus crying, blubbering. I don't know. I'm going to lose my job.
It's nagging every 15 minutes. Well, you didn't do this. And then you didn't do that. And you fall into such a state of overwhelm because nobody's genuinely hearing you. They're not seeing that you're struggling. And that's where that comes in. Okay. You want me to be emotional to you. You want me to show you my feelings, but yet you won't catch me if I fall. If I fall and I'm not able to make sure the garbage is taken out because you let my emotions come out. It's like most guys feel like the second their emotions come out, they crash because they're finally letting it go. What was driving them is the fact that they didn't let it go. They didn't let it go. It was pushing them. You told them to let it go. Now all of a sudden they crash because they're emotionally withdrawn from everything and they're overwhelmed. And they just then pound you and pound you and pound you over every little thing that you don't do. And then it becomes a cycle.
Now, the big picture question is this whole hiding of true vulnerability and emotion in men. Where does that come from? Where did we learn that from? If you ask ladies, it's your fellow man. Us three here keep each other down. We're the ones that say, shut up, you wimp, and punch him in the, in the arm as a little kid. If you talk to a lot of men, it's like, especially guys in my group, no, we actually feel more open than ever when we're in a room full of men. We hug, we cry, we do all that stuff. As soon as a woman enters the room, the proverbial room, so to speak, we all dry our tears and go, nothing to see here. Nope.
Yeah.
So the whole it's men against men thing, for me, in my perspective, doesn't hold a lot of water. If that's
I think from the outside it looks like that though, because we're always, just shitting on each other and being rude and mean and shovey. But like that's how we deal as men, and we don't like get too vulnerable with each other. But then it seems like that vulnerability is perceived as a weakness by women. And then it gets kind of awkward after that, because like, oh, you're supposed to be the strong figure, because they've also built that up about you. And then once that starts to crack, everything just trickles apart.
And women tend to be more social and talkative and open. A psych term would be, or personality trait is openness. Women tend to be higher in openness than men are.
And I think the ADHD people and the autism people that are going to be attracted to this conversation are actually that person. If you have a lot of conversations with those people, they're normally the person that will open their heart and tell you their entire life story in the first 5 minutes they meet you. And they're going to tell you every single little bit about them. And they're going to tell you every single one of their weak points, except the ones that hurt. And it's like the ones that you hold in and the ones that hurt you because you can't figure it out or you can't put the pieces together. Those are the things that, oh, well, you're supposed to be completely open. You're supposed to be completely vulnerable. Oh, so I'm supposed to tell you every little bit of me that hurts. So that way, when we argue, you're going to be like, oh, you're just like your father. I haven't met my father. Do you know him? I haven't seen him since he went to go get a pack of Marlboros and a gallon of milk fucking 30 years ago. How do you know him like my father? I don't even know him like my father. It's insane. Because it holds true in at least all of my experiences. I know a lot of people say that too.
Yep. I'm going to close the door real quick because when dog busted in, she...
Yeah, no, it's really weird. I wasn't formally diagnosed with ADHD until I was 27. Yeah, 27, 28.
What was the drive to go get diagnosed?
So I was dealing with very, very severe suicidal ideation. And me and my wife were talking about separating and going through divorce and everything else. And I didn't want to end it with me dying. I didn't want the end of the story to be me dying. I felt like there was more that I could do, whether it's helping people or something like that, or even if it's just my kids. Me dying cannot be every answer in the situation. It can't be, oh, I'm walking down to the end of the aisle. I could grab this and then check out, or I could check out and then grab my meds and then leave, or I could just die because I don't feel like doing any of this. It doesn't have to be like that. And I was like, there's something here. I'm going to get my ADHD checked out because, I'm struggling. I'm going to get my depression checked out because I'm struggling. At some point, you kind of just need the help, and I needed somebody to listen. And once I was able to realize what the answer was, that things are just slightly different and it's okay, I was able to then explode with being able to be productive and everything else, because then it's like, okay, now I have a guidebook on how to do everything. I was self-medicating with thousands of milligrams of caffeine just to feel like a human. And it's just like, okay, all of a sudden I'm fixed. And now it's like, okay, caffeine now puts me back to sleep like it did when I was 8. And it's like, okay, now it just keeps me calm instead of it being this explosive thing that makes me feel like a human. Now it's just like, okay, now I realize what everybody's calmness was. It's just being normal. And it's just such a weird path and weird problems to feel.
And it's something I hear quite often from guys in our group. We have a lot of ADHD guys. Yeah. Very, very common. Yeah, I'll often hear guys, some of the more common traits are, I'm the type of guy, these men will say, that really, when I get into a subject matter, I really, really get into it. Like I dive 1,000% into it. And then it kind of fizzles out.
And then I don't care anymore.
And I put it up on the shelf. And then I kind of feel lost because I don't have an obsessive thing anymore. And look, there's the next thing. Obsess over this next thing. And when you go to their garage or their basement, it's like a museum of past things I used to be obsessed with. There's the drum set collecting dust that I said I was going to turn into the best jazz drummer in the world, and it's got dust on it. Well, maybe I'll sell it one of these days. I don't know. And there's a toy train. I was
But
going to do
I'm pretty damn good at it.
and on and on and on. Yeah. The
It's
positive though is when you talk to these guys, which by the way, I have some of those characteristics myself, is that what an interesting, multifaceted life they have. I used to be this, I used to be that. I was really into this. Oh yeah, I know about that. Wow, okay. And to do otherwise seems really boring to them.
And the interesting thing is that we have a modern version of that with Steam, because you have the unfinished game library. Someone picks up a game, just plays a little bit, maybe beats it, but doesn't 100% it, and they just keep moving on and on.
And it goes back to the old saying, well, a jack of all trades is not as good as a master of one.
Master of none, yeah.
But the thing is, I might be a master of none, but I know how to do every damn possible thing really fucking well, at least to an acceptable level, if not better. If I know it, I know it. And most people don't. And that to me is always the interesting part. Because if you look back at our grandparents and stuff like that, it's like, oh, who do you run to go learn how to change your oil? Most guys don't learn that now. How many guys are outside learning how to change their oil? They're going to go to their dad. They're going to go to their grandpa. Even guys our age. Most guys don't know this shit anymore. They just take it to the dealership and get it done. Where are you going to learn it from? Where are you going to learn how to fix a hose or something dumb? Like everybody goes to YouTube now, or they just pay to get it done. You learn those things and you pick them up. It's rather easy to kind of live life at that point.
Exactly right.
So after writing these notes for myself, literally, what was it, 2 weeks ago when we disconnected and everything else, I only know like half of these topics I even wanted to cover. So, we're doing a good job. So obviously we talked about your dad group beginning and stuff like that. So my topic titles are Boys Will Be Boys and How to Fix Men, Dad Group Beginning. I have no idea what the hell I was even thinking about at all.
Well, I can't help you there.
No, I'm just really frustrated with myself. So this topic actually kind of sticks with me, and it definitely works with your dad starting over thing. And I wanted to talk about this for a little bit, is single moms and not walking away. It seems like a lot of guys now, especially in the inner cities and stuff, are going and having fun and just doing whatever. And then all of a sudden they start feeling real and everything starts feeling real. And they just put their hands up and say, I don't want this anymore. Or there's problems and they just up and leave. Now I'm a kid from a single mother household. And I see how big of a problem this is. What's your experience with all this stuff? Because I'm sure that you're hearing a lot of these stories of guys just upping and leaving, or trying to figure out how not to be afraid.
We have thank you, internet. We have a lot of youngish guys talking to each other about the world of relationships. And there's this whole subculture. They call themselves Red Pill, which goes and diverts into other territories such as MGTO, MGTOW, men going their own way. And then we have the really negative stuff like involuntary celibates or incel. And it's basically a lot of guys in not so great stages of life comparing notes with each other. And one thing
all of it fails.
One thing you'll hear again and again is to be vulnerable, to connect at an emotional deep level with a woman these days is good luck. Dangerous. You could lose everything. Not only get your feelings hurt and your heart broken, but all this money to lose, and the law is against you. And yet again, if it bleeds, it leads in the world of news. It's
not wrong, and that's the problem.
Exactly. Of course, there's a grain of truth to this. Yeah, we all know that. But instead, maybe a little biased, obviously, but I think messages like mine are one of, if you don't want to get married, if you don't want to connect with one person for the rest of your life and have kiddos and everything else, hallelujah, whatever, fine. You live life as a bachelor. I often say when I was a kid, I remember one bachelor in particular that I knew who was in his 70s. And my mom did bookkeeping for him. He owned an accounting firm. And I went to his house and I used to do errands around his house. He lived out in the country and he paid me to do stuff around his house. And one day I was like, wait a minute, there's no Mrs. Bob. Whatever happened to Mrs. Bob? I bet she died because he's like 70 something. My mom was like, Bob's never been married. Bob has 2 girlfriends, one in Indiana, one in Florida. He doesn't have any kids. I was like, I remember as a kid thinking, I've never heard of this. And he was just a completely normal bachelor dude living out in the country by himself. To to a lot of people in a lot of cultures, that's completely unheard of. It's just a given that you get married. You graduate high school, college, get married, have kiddos. It's just what you do. And the grand epiphany I've had in all of this is not all of us are wired for that. And dare I say, the majority of us aren't wired for that.
And it seems like that
Yeah.
that neurodivergence, which is where this gets confusing, is the neurodivergence of things being new instills that more in us every single day. Because as we pick up our phone for a dopamine hit and we're scrolling through TikTok and there's 15 different videos you like, you're looking for something different than what you already have. And that dopamine hit, that ADHD burning itself into you, then also interacts with your normal everyday life. It's going to change how you want things or how you see things. Like at 15 years old, I was like, okay, I'm going to settle down. I'm going to get married. And that's what I have to do. I have to prove to myself that I can be a dad. I have to prove to myself that I can take care of a family because I've never had a dad who did it. Okay, why am I thinking these things at 15? Everything is fucking destroyed at this point. Like, and that's the point that I don't think a lot of people really realize is if you go back to 2012, 2010, the early 2010s, guys were getting shit on in every single way. And it got worse as up until about now, it seems. Because you have the third wave feminist and the new age one that came in right after them. They were, men make every single dime on the dollar more than females do. I remember my mom telling me, I work as a nurse, Zach. The male nurses, they make $4 or $5 more than I do an hour. I was like, Mom, that as an adult. Now I tell her she's fucking crazy. If that's true, that's why the nursing industry is all females now. But no, that's not true, Mom. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane to kind of hold that ideal. And it's just like, so many guys were shit on at that point that it's like so many guys are afraid now because they have the dads and the cousins and the uncles that grew up during that age in relationships that they're like, oh, well, Uncle Joe hasn't had a stable relationship because all these bitches are crazy. It's like, no, the bitches weren't crazy. Everybody's fucked up now. They don't have that same thought process that our grandparents did. Nobody wants to hold the relationship together. They're just like, oh, it's a problem. Let's let it go. It's weird.
It is. And you know what doesn't help the situation is the apparent ease and availability of sex. It's for some people, I was going to say a lot, not necessarily a lot, not necessarily the majority, but for a relatively small portion of people, it's so readily available. It's ridiculous. It's a cafeteria to them. It's pick up their phone and go, do you want to hang out Wednesday? Yes. Done. Yeah.
It's like the top 30, 40% of guys can have it at any point in time. And your household has to be that available to you for you not to realize that that's even a thing. And that's a weird thing for a lot of people to grip with because they're like, oh, well, I'm in a relationship or I'm married. It should be available. No, there's books written about it, obviously. That's why dead bedrooms happen, because problems happen. And then all of a sudden you realize, well, I can go elsewhere for this. Why am I sitting here waiting? Why am I waiting for you if you're not giving to me what I need as a person to be okay? It's a weird dichotomy.
And so back to the why is it that maybe young ones would be averse to forming real, genuine, vulnerable, loving relationships with somebody long term? So we've made the case for because throughout their childhood, they sat back and watched their immediate and extended family have troubles with marriage, specifically the men. So my mom and dad split up. My uncle so-and-so just went from crazy woman to crazy woman, and he ended up in jail over one of them. My grandpa, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And then so we have that. And then compounding that is I'm a young man. I have looks and charisma and a personality about me as such that actually getting a girlfriend and having sexual intercourse is not very difficult for me. In fact, it's really, really easy. And then along comes somebody and says, all that stuff you saw, how readily available sex and fun is to you. How about you just
why don't you just do it?
Settle down and get with one gal. And then, by the way, here's a ton of information available on the internet to show you that sex fizzles once you get married for the majority of us. So young man, we're not doing a very good job of selling the whole industry.
And honestly, and this is kind of looking at it in a kind of a red pill way, I assume most people will say. There's no benefits for guys other than the consistency of the person that's making sure you're okay. That's all that's the only thing that you're kind of receiving in getting married. And that's coming from somebody who didn't want to get married to begin with, didn't agree with it. And like now I'm just like, okay, well, I made the bet and I lost.
Here's the thing. I asked a question in my last group to the group. I said, so is marriage natural? Is monogamy natural? And a lot of people are like, not really. That's why it's such a struggle for so many of us.
On the guy's side, no, I don't.
If that's the case, I said, then why is it throughout recorded history of mankind and today, throughout cross socioeconomic barriers, cross-culturally, all over the world, monogamy and marriage is by far the majority case. You could go to a jungle somewhere in South America where they have no contact with the outside world, and you'll see one man and one woman paired up. And they will say, she is mine, he is mine. We are a couple. We're a pair. Now, the thing is, though, that doesn't necessarily insinuate strict sexual monogamy. People fooling around with other people. In some cultures, it's like we understand it is what it is, but we're still the primary couple together. Others, we don't want to hear about it. We don't want to talk about it, but we kind of know it's there. That was very, very common in our grandpa's and great grandpa's world. They had the secretary on the side. Grandma didn't ask about it. These are all things that no one ever thinks about, but it sure seems to be the case. So where was I going with this? So is it natural? It seems to be our inclination as the human animal is to pair bond with somebody.
Somebody that we can completely trust. It seems like it seems like that's almost burnt into us because of how kids are made. You have one person that you completely trust and you have complete vulnerability to, and that's why there's such a breakdown of young marriages at this point. And young as in like marriages before that kind of 7-year gap that always breaks apart where everybody has a problem. Like, and it seems like that's exactly what it is like nobody wants to be completely vulnerable, and at the point where they no longer feel like you're being completely vulnerable, they pick at it and say, okay, you're not being consistent, you're not being completely honest with me, and that's where things break. If it's before then, you're not being vulnerable at all. And dad's going to go get a gallon of milk and a pack of Marlboros and never coming back. It's like they don't want to deal with the problems. And that's what it is to me, it seems like, at least.
And one thing we don't want to lose sight of is, I tell you, when I talk to these guys one-on-one, and I'll say, when did the wheels start falling off the relationship? Invariably, I will hear usually some semblance or some combination of when we moved in together, things got serious. Things got comfortable. But usually it's the kids entering the picture is the tipping point where a lot of men go, now I can see there's definitely a change in this relationship. This woman is not the same anymore. The demeanor has changed. The intimacy between the two of us has just fallen off the table. The kids seems to be the driving factor there. So where was I going with this line of thinking? So when I talk to guys, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. ADHD, man. It's hell.
There you go. So when does the relationship fall?
It just seems like a lot of those specific mile markers that you have in a relationship, whether that's moving in, whether that's kids, whether that's the signing the piece of paper, those kind of term limits of realizing that something is real really kind of cast the doubt of why the fuck am I launching myself into something that is final? And that's kind of what we're always told. Oh, well, marriage is final. Well, nobody takes marriage as final anymore because everybody has these kind of ideals of, oh, well, I can get something out there that's easier because nobody else wants to give. It's like, okay, well, I don't have to take out the garbage to go get laid. You're telling me I have to, and that doesn't work. Like, we have to have a partnership in this. I'm vulnerable to you. You're saying that now this is a bargaining chip, and now I'm like, okay, well, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah, I know where I was going with this. So, in addition to this is when the wheels fell off. You say, okay, so tell me about mom and dad. I'll ask the guy, and I'll be like, oh, geez, well. Mom cheated on dad when I was like 12. Yada, 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 in and out of broken homes. Dad got married 3 or 4 times. Mom had, so many guys walking in and out of the door. Okay, let's back it up even further. About grandma and grandpa. Oh, God. Grandpa cheated on grandma. Okay, let's stop there. Let's jump on over to old wifey there. Tell me about her. Oh, hers is even worse. Sexual abuse and all kinds of things. To make a long story short, what I have seen probably, hell, I don't know, 99% of the time, this is a generational thing. It's this chaos, but for lack of a better word, these people grew up in these systems, and they sit back and they have a front row seat for this is how couples interact with each other. This is how they resolve problems. This is how they stay connected or not stay connected. I sit back as a kid and young adult and watch this, and I take that into my adult world, and I do it all over again.
And then when you sit down at dinner with your parents or whatever, whether that's mom or dad, they're like, well, you're doing so good. You're just like me. And you're like, fuck. Fuck.
Ouch. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I tried not to do everything like you did because, you try and be opposite. It's weird.
So we want to say, are there people out there that are able to do this long-term relationship thing, stay connected, be there for each other, be vulnerable, keep a romantic relationship, be each other's best buddies and so forth? Yes, they exist. Mm-hmm. I know them. And when you sit and study them and you go, what's their secret? I'm telling you, you go look at their mom and dad. You're like, yeah, good people. Same thing.
Well,
go look at grandma.
It also seems like that if you give somebody 95, 98% complete vulnerability, obviously you're never going to say every little thought in your mind to every single person. Like, that's just never going to happen. And you can trust every single word out of their mouth. That will be the longest relationship or friendship that you ever have in your entire life. Nobody else will ever match it because you can completely be genuine and vulnerable to that person. Mm-hmm. But the second that they break that, the second that they kick that, then it will crash faster than you ever could imagine. And it's just like, they will kick you where it hurts every single time. They'll be like, oh, you're just like your dad. How do you know what my
Why
dad
did
is?
I have to open up to you about how I feel about my dad? I should have never done that because now it's a vulnerability.
Yeah, but there's one caveat here, though, that a lot of more anxious guys, especially neurodivergent guys, have a difficult time with is the concept of boundaries. Mm-hmm. Where I begin and you end, begin and end, and so forth. They become very enmeshed with others. It's I'm 1000% into you, and you to me. We are one, and that's not necessarily the healthiest mindset to take forth in life. Period, especially in a relationship.
That's exactly what happened with my marriage. You look at even before we were married, when we had kids, it was me and my wife. Regardless of what we were doing, it was us together. We did everything together. We were best friends. And when things break, they get ugly. And that's exactly what happens. Is it's a cycle, and it's a vicious fucking cycle, because it's either things work absolutely amazingly or everything's fucked completely and entirely. And there is no middle ground.
Mm-hmm. And guys and gals, it's not just a guy thing, that are anxious in that way. And there's this whole concept of attachment theory. You're anxious attachment guy or gal. When there are healthy boundaries, when there is, you have your world, I have my world, we come together as a unit, but we're still independent from each other. Anytime we inch towards that dynamic, it's panic time. This doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel healthy. It doesn't feel normal. I feel like an asshole for being an independent person. I feel like I'm neglecting them. I need to devote more. I need to attach further. I need to attach more and more. And it literally drives the other person away.
It's hard to figure out. And in those situations, when you're out of them, it is so hard to figure out exactly how much you're wanted and needed. You don't know what those boundaries are anymore, because everybody's boundary is different. And it's like, okay, well, this person wanted me to do everything for them and with them. Okay. Wait, nobody wants that. Why did I feel like I had to do that anymore? Why did I feel like I had to do that at any point in time? Why was it my job to do 99.9% of everything, and for you to jump at the 1%? And it's like, okay, wow, life has been weird. Life has been really weird.
Welcome to the wonderful world of codependent relationships. And that's a pretty common thing in our world.
Absolutely. And obviously you brought this topic up before with incels and incelibate people and stuff like that. That was actually one of my topics, and you did trigger a base memory of what I wanted to talk about. It seems like a lot of people in the gaming community, especially, so a lot of the people that, are just around on Reddit and forums and stuff like that, they're always looking at, oh, well, I can't do this. They don't want to be with me. The stereotypical fedora wearing guy who sits in a black room with no light bulbs and has a fan on, and you can't even hear them. I don't know why they're using a mic. how do you fix them? How do they fix themselves? Like, obviously, if
What?
they're looking for
Yeah.
help at some point, how can you fix them?
I bet you those people tend not to have much of a real world social group of men around them. That
They
says
don't.
everything right there, doesn't it?
Yeah, that does.
I'm willing to bet a lot of those guys don't have much of a father figure.
I
Mhm.
also think, and this might be weird, it seems like a lot of those guys that don't have the male friend group, and I'm so happy I didn't fall into this category myself, had those single mother households because they're like, oh, women are goddesses. Women lead the way. And it's the same exact white knight kind of ideology that they're holding now. If they jump at that exact thought process, they're going to just be like, oh, this woman's right because they said something. And it's like, guys, can we not learn how context works? You just validating everything everybody says doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, I think there's like a million ways of breaking that down because it could also go the other way of like, oh, the only woman in my life failed me because of a single mother household.
Yeah.
And then that's where they grow resentment. But then they also get the desperation to where it's like, well, now I just need to like praise every woman and maybe one of them will find me and then they will like me and see I'm a good person that I wasn't able to develop as. And I think going back to even further when you were talking about that 70-year-old bachelor, the internet exposes us to so many people that we would have never ever interacted with. Because
Mhm.
how are you going to know the lonely not lonely, but the bachelors living on their own if they don't have a wife and then they don't socialize with the rest of the community? So like these people are now discoverable online. Like, oh, there's a lot of them, but they just never interacted with society before. So I think it creates a big warping of what we're supposed to think about people, where it's like, oh, I'm the outcast, which like, no, you're actually normal. We just didn't know these people existed.
There you go. Very good. And there's a lot of pushback in the relationship game of especially more socially conservative types. This is the game plan. This is the way you do things. If you
Mhm.
start veering off this path in a degenerate way, quote unquote,
Mhm.
no, hell to pay. Don't do it. Here, this is the path. Go get your wife. Go have your 2.5 kids in your house and your picket fence and do it now. Yes, but I came from a world of chaos. It doesn't matter if you came from chaos. That you need to do this. You need to do this now. But I'll just create more chaos. Who cares? Just do it. This
Mhm.
is your path. And that's what I saw growing up in the Midwest, small town Indiana. That's just what you did. Everyone got their girlfriend, turned her into a wife, turned her into mom, and all hell broke loose.
And it's weird how once you let go of that chaos, that becomes so consistent in your mind and in your life at that point that you become such a disconnected from the situation kind of person. You're like, wait, what is this? Why is everything not chaos? And it's like, guys, it's okay. It's okay. Like, just breathe for 5 seconds and realize that
Mhm.
just because something's not chaos, just because something's not chaotic, doesn't mean it's not okay. It
Mhm.
can be okay. It can be absolutely perfect. You just have to breathe and realize that it's normal to be okay and normal not to be chaotic. Uh,
There you go.
It's mental illness, man. It's
Yeah.
hell.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
back to the incel world. What can we do about these poor guys, of which there's a pretty sizable group, and in your gaming world as well? Why does the gaming world tend to attract them? Well, isolation. You don't need other humans around you. You're in your little basement on the PC and headset on, and that's it in the dark. That attracts a certain type of people that I don't feel comfortable. I'm very socially anxious. I'm perhaps maybe on the autism spectrum, and socializing is even more difficult for me. How do we reach these guys so that they don't end up going into a school with a gun and wiping out a bunch of people? The most extreme
Mhm.
example, but that tends to be those types of people. Um,
Yeah. Well,
it's fun.
the more degenerate of a person is, the more likely they are to be in more and more circles that are more and more degenerate.
And
At
they
some point,
lash
it
out
just
at
scales.
society
Yeah.
and just say, "Yeah, we're the weirdos and we need to pay society back, and damn all you people going out with a bang." And then it's funny with these guys. We talk about they need to socialize more with more men in their circle, and if you tell that to those guys, they'll roll their eyes and say,
I
going
have all
out and
these women
socializing
though.
with other men, there's so many barriers to that. No man wants to hang out with me. I'm not cool enough just to go into a room somewhere and go, "Hey guys, can I hang out with you?" or whatever. And for a lot of those guys, have you even tried?
Mhm.
I'm big into working out, and one thing that a lot of men in our group, especially, are more nerdy type, for whatever that means, you're socially isolated types, so they go into that gym world and they say one of the most pleasant surprises is how welcoming it was. where I just went up to the most muscular, roided out weirdo in the whole gym and just say, "Can you show me how to do it?" And the guy's like, "You got it, brother," and slaps him on the back and let's do this. And he's just like, "Okay." And the guy's like, "You're going to be here 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and I'm going to work out with you." "All right." He's like, "Where did that come from?" It's like, "Yeah, that's that world. That's the world of dudes helping dudes."
Regardless of what it is, it's like you need an accountability buddy for life. That's what a lot of dudes need, it seems. It's not just going to go get jacked or going to go make money or get off your PC, because all of those things can be part of a healthy life. It's just like, just have a dude who actually will hold you accountable and you respect them. Not just the dude who you grew up with that absolutely still know life's everything and has that same ADHD, you know, addict kind of mindset where they put 24 hours into something because they don't feel like doing anything else. You have to look at somebody that holds themselves accountable too. And that's a lot of like where I disagree with things like addiction counseling and AA and everything else, it being so run by just religion. And it's like, okay, where's the accountability of the person that's making the decisions? Oh, well, I need to repair all my relationships. Okay, but why is it? Okay, well, God will take care of you if you just do these things. It's like, no. If God is real, which may or may not be, you still have to hold yourself accountable for the time that you're here. So, okay, where are you missing? A dude, whether that's your dad, your grandpa, and it's the asshole guy of the room, 99% of the time that you don't want to be around, will tell you where you're fucking up. And most people don't want them around because they just want to get rid of them. It's because they care and they're saying something, and they're a caring person, not an asshole just pointing at people's flaws.
Yeah.
Most of the time, those people will help.
And I don't think you find that online, because like you find like if you go online in certain like communities, especially in gaming, you're going to find the same people that are struggling with the same things. So you're not going to find the dude gym bro that's willing to help you out. You're going to be finding someone else like, I can't make friends either. Let's be friends. And you're not getting the right people together. And just like the Twitter algorithm just like finds the best way of giving you the worst takes and the worst kind of people. Where because in gaming, especially like League of Legends, I play League of Legends, notoriously like toxic, degenerate, hateful community. And it's like, well, if that's your algorithm, that's like what you've fallen into, you're not going to find the best people there. Or like, you're not going to be able to help each other unless you're really deliberate about it. Every day I open up Twitter and I see, how do I make friends online? From like, you know, just this this Twitter ecosystem, and I don't have like that big of a problem with it. Like me and Zach, we're chilling, we hang out, and then I also have like other friends and stuff. So like, if you're getting the right mentality, you can reverse that. But if that's your only life, is opening up Twitter and just seeing like your other three mutuals going, friends are hard, life sucks, how do I get a girl, all these weird interactions, like you're just going to keep spiraling into that.
There is especially amongst the incel world, there's a major crabs in the bucket mentality, as we call it. You know, somebody tries to crawl out and they pull you back down and say, "Not so fast, mister." And you know, there's been studies on the incel world where they will look at it. You know, they study these guys like lab rats and say, "Let's try to figure out what's going on with these guys." And they have observed with them when one gets online and says, "Guys, I met a girl the other week, and we actually
you're gonna leave us, you piece of shit." Blah, blah.
Not that. No, you realize she's going to cheat on you, and she doesn't want anything to do with you. She's just being nice because she wants you to buy something. You know, only 1% of men actually get girls. And the guy's okay, never mind.
It's like, oh, she asked me to pay for dinner, and then the whole group's like, oh, we were right.
Yep, it's on now. Gold digger.
It's the same shit that happened in the early 2000s when we were making fun of chicks that were like the designated ugly fat friend, and like you look at the friend group. Oh, you hit on the ugly one because the fat. Then all of a sudden the attractive one will notice you. It's like the same shit's happening. The same shit. We allowed the same shit to happen to dudes that females were doing to each other before. Oh, how do you know the difference in between a dude and a female? A dude friendship is, I'm going to tell you you're an asshole. We're going to joke around. We're going to have fun, and you're going to know nothing about my problems. But girls, they will sit there and talk shit and have intimate, in-depth conversations. Be like, I never liked that slut. Who the fuck is she? It's like, what the fuck? We're doing the same thing to ourselves. Same exact fucking thing.
While blaming them and then getting resentful and becoming locked into our own.
It's just like, fuck. Guys, we're turning into women. All of you motherfuckers are turning into women. Can we fucking stop?
Bro, that's like the big wake-up call to every incel out there. It's like, you're just doing the same thing that you're blaming the others for, and no one's getting better. Stop.
No, let's go for the real clickbaity title. Motherfuckers, you're turning into your mom. The person that you resent and hate the most in this world, the person that drove your dad away from you for you being a normal human being, you're turning into them. You're either becoming completely validating and loving everybody without reason, or you're becoming such a douchebag that you have nothing else going on in your life other than being an asshole. Those are the only two outcomes you have. So stop being an asshole.
A common thing I mentioned in my material a lot that I see a lot amongst guys is the guy will say, I was kind of a surrogate husband to my mother. So dad left, or he worked too much, or whatever it may be. He just wasn't in the picture much. Mom came home from work, and I knew, sit my butt down and listen to about my mom's day, about what this asshole at work said, about this, about that. And then, or if she's divorced from dad, let me tell you about boyfriend. Let me tell you about this boyfriend struggle. Really not son mother stuff at all.
I understood that so much when I watched your video on that. I believe you called it emotional incest or something like that.
Yeah.
And that title clicked. I was like, holy shit. And I watched it and I'm like, that happened. And you don't realize it. And I don't even know if they realize it.
No,
it's just like you become their best friend. You become the person that they rely on. And it's just like, fuck, guys, it happens. It happens everywhere. It happens.
It happened with me. And then when I grew up and like look back on my past, I'm like, oh, there was a lot of like weird ways that affected me, and I need to address this and like think about it so that way I can overcome those issues that a lot of people don't, or they don't even realize.
As always, boys, use code RMTS at checkout. Use code Verlisify at checkout. 20% off. Shows G Fuel. We love them. Absolutely the only energy drink we drink every single day. So go give them some love. They deserve it.
You develop a weird connection that most people genuinely don't understand. This isn't saying, oh, well, that guy is a mama's boy. This is probably what he's dealing with. No, this is the third and fourth level of that shit.
Oh, yeah.
This is that person being not necessarily even a mama's boy. They might not even fully enjoy their mother's company, but that mom has a lot of impact on that person's life.
And it's a major impact on who he seeks out, who he attracts, and who he's attracted to. And they often are attracted to the gals that need saving. Man, I got all these problems in my life. I bring all this chaos, and the guy's like, this feels familiar. This feels comfortable. Come right in.
Exactly.
And then when somebody's perfectly normal and nice and there's no chaos, he's just like, nah, it's not going to work. And
because you don't feel the dopamine drip of trying to fix something. And
we all look back, hand raised. I can attest to this. I'll look back at potential girlfriend candidates in the past who seemed really interested in me, but just something wasn't there. It's just like, no, it's not happening. And when I look back and go, what was it? They were too normal. They're just far too normal and boring.
They just like, no drama. I didn't do that to myself.
Stability, gross. Stability. Get that off me.
Yuck. So yeah, that was my story. Yeah.
No, it's so weird because that shit hit home because before my wife, I had 5 chicks that I was talking to at that time. I was very, very involved with all of them. And I was kind of just making choices and just running life. It's like 2 years ago, I could have made going back on that decision I made when I was choosing in between 5 girls. One of those girls came back into my life and was around. Just like, shit. What would life have been if I chose my best friend at the time instead of the girl who ended up being my wife with kids? What life changes at that point? That becomes really fucking weird to kind of look at and kind of dissolve. And it's like, that person's more intelligent. That person's this, that person's that. And it's like, that changes and impacts all of your life and you don't realize it. And it's like, guys, your choices at 14, 15 could be life decisions tomorrow. And it's like, not every decision that you make at that time is, but some of them do. Some decisions that you might not put thought in, whether it's going back to go on a date with somebody or getting in bed with somebody or whatever that is, that decision could not just last today. It might last the next 18 years or the next 30 years, or it might be life.
If you're a young man watching this, if you take away one nugget of wisdom from this, it is the people you surround yourself with, especially those you bring close into your circle, have ginormous impacts on your life, especially if it's your romantic partner, your woman in your life. Oh my goodness, you pick the wrong one, dramatic cascading effects years and years down the line. You
Well, and
pick the
also,
right
like,
one.
if she's like the really, really wrong one, she kicks out your good friends because they're a threat to her and what she's providing. And
Yeah.
then now, like, oh shit, I lost all my friends, and now I got a divorce, and like it's over.
That's a very
done.
typical narcissistic ploy, is to remove
Do you
other
guys
people.
do you guys believe that there's one or a handful of people that you're supposed to interact with in life? Do you have that same kind of
Supposed
like
to, I don't know. It's kind of like, is
like
there an
females kind of look at, oh, well, we're soulmates. I don't think that's real. But as a whole, your life will be kind of, whether my life was chaos. Let me just say it that way. I moved around so many times in my childhood and stuff like that. And if I look at the people that I was talking to at different points in my life, those people, if you look at how my life could have branched off, a lot of those people have a person kind of, sitting at the end of it. It would make sense for that to happen if I was going this path and this path happened. Do you feel like that kind of almost destiny is logical, or is it just finding an answer in a problem that's not really there?
I think it's us applying our very human tendency to look for patterns and meaning where it maybe doesn't necessarily belong. I'm not a religious person. A religious
I'm
person
not
would,
either.
a religious
I,
person would
I'm,
listen to that and they would say, "Well, of course there's a meaning to this. There's a higher power. There's a universe, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever it is that's
but if
dictating things."
honestly, that if that's the answer, and oh, religion's the answer, this could work. There's different paths you should go on. No, if it's religious and he perceives the path that I'm supposed to go on, there's only one answer. Every other answer is negative. So whatever choice it was in between my childhood and those choices would have a direct correct answer and wrong answer. And I think that's why so many autistic people struggle, is there's not a right and wrong answer in life. They always look for either morality or this is the right answer because of this or that. And it becomes such a drastic impact to what they perceive, is it's always right or wrong.
It's funny you mentioned that because so many guys I talk to want to quantify everything. How many times of
I struggle with that.
how many instances of blank, fill in the blank, is considered good, and how many is considered bad? Like there's
Well,
no.
what is the logical percentage of this
Yeah,
outcome?
how
Or
many? Something silly like how often should a woman in the relationship initiate sex with the husband versus the husband initiating? I'm like, are you looking for a hard number here? Like, are you keeping track on a calendar? What's the purpose of said number? Well, my wife is at 0. Well, more than 0. I don't know what to tell you. Put 2.9%. There's no real answer there, but a lot of guys are wired in that way.
put a calendar
yeah.
next to your bed and put $1 in the jar every single time she initiates sex, and then you'll see how much she actually realizes.
Going back to the concept of the emotional incest, I did not come up with that. There was an author who became really popular named Neil Strauss. I don't know if you know Neil Strauss. He wrote a book years ago
Never heard of
called
him.
The Game, and it was about, he was a nerd, incel type, who infiltrated, basically, who got really into the world of pickup artists. These guys, these also nerdy, probably on the spectrum guys who cracked the code for how to get women to sleep with them. And it was a really big industry back in the 80s, 90s and stuff. And he became a part of that. He became a really big name in that. And then he wrote a book about his experience. And it was basically kind of a memoir on, look at the crazy shit I got into as this very broken young man. And all it did was lead me to become even more broken. And then he wrote a follow-up book to that called The Truth. So there was The Game and then The Truth. The Truth was not nearly as popular as The Game. Game sold millions of copies. The Truth was basically him as an older adult exploring the origins of what got me into this mess as a young man.
Yeah, what
And
trauma, what
one
causes
of the things he identified was this emotional incest. He had far too much of a close relationship with mom, and a therapist told him, this is the biggest case of emotional incest we've ever seen. He's like, oh, I don't like that word.
You don't want to hear that.
You don't want to hear that. So that's where I got that from. And sure enough, I hear that all the time. Some semblance of that.
Yeah, no, and it goes both ways. It's on both sides, and that's the problem. Is you might not see it, you might not fully understand it, but in any household, whether it's a single mother household, a single father household, it spreads, and that person's in the house. That's why they connect to their kid, because they're there, and especially a lot of our mom's generations. My mom grew up in the 80s. It was, oh, you know, I'm your mother. I brought you into this world. I can take you out. It was always reinforced by, you're only here because of me.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily narcissistic, but it is. And as a whole, it's not just that ideology. It's they feel like they are entitled to have that connection with you because you're theirs. No, I'm not. I'm not yours. I'm mine. I'm my own person, not fucking yours. And that's the weirdest boundary as an adult I had to draw, was where my life started and where theirs ended.
Yeah.
And leaving the house wasn't just the answer. It's like, and you see it in so many families and so many households. I had this conversation with my aunt the other day. No, it wasn't the other day. It was last year before my brother's wedding. And she looked at me. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, there's nothing for you to do. It's for you to enjoy that you did a good job, that my brother made it out of the shithole that he had, and that everything is good. And whatever level that they expect you to be in their life, be happy with it, because you either did a good job or a bad job, and that's the reflection. But realize that the second that those papers are signed and those vows are said, that is a different family than yours. You're not adding her to your family. That is not your new daughter, and he is no longer the son in that aspect. It's not he runs home to go fix the problems anymore. He has his own problems to fix. And it's like everybody wants to run back to, oh, well, it's your job. I brought you into this world. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
And I think like a weird thing is when you realize you're becoming like the pincushion for their problems. It's not only emotional stuff. It's like, I don't have the energy to do dishes today. That's what the kid is for. I don't want to do this. Like when the kid has to pick up all the slack, and you're just kind of stuck in that part of the relationship as well. And as I grow up and I like watch more content from other people, like Jordan Peterson, when he talks about familial development, how this impacts people, and it starts to all click, and they get like these weird like views of how your development and growing up went, where it's like, wow, my mom said a lot of stuff when I was like growing up, and then as I got more mature, she stopped saying those things, so it seems like I could piece them together, where it's like, oh, what was she doing back in then with that? And oh, there was a divorce before dad. It's like, oh, she stopped talking about that when she realized I could catch on to like, wait a second, that's not good stuff.
The crazier
like
thing to catch on is, think about this. Spanking was okay in the 90s. How quick did that change? And which parents did it affect? The narcissistic, shitty ones that were, having their kids in the 90s, that all of a sudden realized that it wasn't okay. It's not them fixing the problem that they had in their upbringing. It's the fact that they brought it over to their kids and then got called on it.
Yeah. Overall, one of the most insidious bad things or overall theme to a childhood, which is bad, is one of my feelings as kiddo don't matter. Shut up. We don't want to hear it. That's not good.
Oh yeah. You talk back.
Done. Yeah, no. And the other is that you can't count on mom and dad here to pick up the pieces when life gets difficult. You're on your own. And then the next insidious layer of that is not only that, but when we have issues, older mom and dad, your caretakers, you need to take care of us. You need to help fix us.
Yep.
So you got those three layers. It's like, oh, it's not good.
I had a crazy level to that. And I don't know if this is just my upbringing or everybody in my kind of age range. I remember so many kids being taken or abused sexually in the early 2000s. Like, it was always on Fox. It was always on CNN. This kid's missing. This kid's taken. There's this problem going on. And I started dealing with abuse myself. And I was dealing with it firsthand. And I broke. And it ended with, we were going to swap. We were going to swap me over to my dad's house. And I just didn't feel right that day. Like, I felt like shit, and my stomach was turning, and I just felt horrible. And I was like, I'm not going, Mom. I'm not going. And she's like, no, you got to go. And her and my dad are standing outside of the van, talking back and forth. And he reaches in the car, unbuckles me, and goes to pick me up. I'm 11 years old at this point. Like, at some point, you kind of got to respect somebody's own space. And I kicked him square in the dick as hard as I possibly fucking could. I was like, I said I'm not feeling good. Leave me the fuck alone. And I kicked him in the balls. And he threw me on the fucking ground in public. Just dropped me, threw me on the ground. my mom lost it. She's like, why the fuck would you do that? Like, regardless, I think back at it as a parent now, that would not be my response. Like, it wouldn't be throw the kid. There's no way in hell I hit you square enough in the dick or the balls for it to be throw the kid at the ground. I'm sorry, that's not how that works. I don't think that that's how it works at all. And I got back in my mom's car, and she asked me twice. She's like, Zach, what happened? And I couldn't come to terms with saying anything because I felt like I wasn't going to be listened to. Like, I was like, oh, Zach, you've seen this on TV all the time. Therefore, that's why you're saying it. And I'm just like, I don't know. Something's not right. And I couldn't get it out. And that traumatized me so badly because I was like, okay, I'm never going to be heard. And then when I finally told her, it's like, nobody asked me why. Nobody asked me what happened. I'm just like, and I ended up having that conversation with her later. I was like, you guys not asking why, you guys not asking me in-depth questions so I was believed, caused the trauma again. Because not only did you guys not listen, you then didn't ask when I finally told you, when I had enough guts to come forward. It's just like, guys, this is hell. And I'm sure that a lot of guys are dealing with just that. Not being able to say, oh, this fucking happened, because we're fucking stoic about it. We're not fully put together because we're struggling with so many things that happen in our childhood, especially with those homes that are all broken and fucked up. Whether it's at home or when you go to dad's, things get fucked up and things get hurt.
Yeah. Question is, how do you deal with that? Like, I think that's the big question. A lot of people that are struggling with it, they don't know, like, how do
you deal with what?
Like, those emotions. Like, if that was a part of your childhood, how can you confront that to then, like, either get over, like, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to get over it? Are you supposed to ignore it? Like,
I didn't feel okay until I talked to lawyers about pressing charges at 26. And when I finally, I'll tell the full story. So I called lawyers and stuff like that. And I finally started talking to my grandpa on that side again, because he was my dad, essentially. He was the guy that was always there. I was always with them. Very, very fucked up situation. My grandma and my grandpa on both sides ended up getting together. So I had both halves of my family essentially together. And it was nice. But it's weird because I ended up getting into a situation where it's like, okay, he now knows I'm pressing charges. I talked to lawyers. I told my grandpa about it. My grandpa wrote him out of the will. My grandpa wrote him off of everything. He's like, you're dead to me. You hurt the one kid that had the chance to do this stuff, and you hurt him. So I ended up getting a phone call. And this aunt and uncle, I don't talk to. They were talking to my aunt that I talk to all the time. And they're like, yeah, well, he drilled holes in his door and drove rebar in between his door into the cement slab underneath his house that he puts the poles in every night. So that way nobody's coming through his door. I was like, so he really thought that he was going down for big fucking crimes at any second. They were going to walk through his door. And I was like, okay, that made it real. Because it's like, okay, that's your acceptance of what the fuck you did. You now feel so anxious about your problem that you're going to affect your house. You're going to affect the people that are staying in your driveway because you don't want them to stay inside. He told my aunt and my uncle that were staying in their driveway to save a night on camping fees because they spent the entire summer camping, that they're not allowed to go to the bathroom in the house after 8 p.m. because he puts rebar in his door. I think some level of accountability is the only way that you can kind of start healing that. And that kind of was that for me. And I think every second that accountability happens, it feels a little bit more okay. And then you can kind of accept what happened. And once you find acceptance, you can kind of release that kind of anger. But that's where a lot of people kind of blow up and lose their fucking mind, is they can't get to the point of, okay, well, this happened. There's some sort of accountability here. There's no more for me to do. Obviously, some people just don't agree with the accountability and they never accept it. But that's why I cycled so badly on dealing with suicidal ideation. It's half of the entire problem between that and not being enough. Did that answer your question? or did
Well,
I
I was just
circle
trying to
around it?
ask it like just in general, like for someone listening that might have these issues, or just the people that aren't listening that we've been talking about that were caught up in this, like how? How are you supposed to deal with it? They don't know. So trying to find ways could help a lot of people.
And that's why I started the show to begin with. And I know I've said this numerous times, but I'm sure that there's new listeners, whether they're coming over from Ralph or not. That's why guys being open and talking at all is a benefit. And that's why I thank Ralph so much for what he's doing, whether I'm a part of it or not, is being that soundboard to help somebody through something is the most imperative thing you can do as a guy. Whether that's a friend group or a dude, it doesn't matter if it's one day that you see somebody break down and you're like, dude, get up. You got this. The way that psychiatry is for most guys doesn't work. They're not going to tell you that you're strong and you're able to do this. They're going to tell you that, oh, you're accepted. Accepting yourself is not where you should be. You should always be working to improve yourself. You're not in the acceptance game. Acceptance is the other side.
I've heard a therapist say once that the key for helping men is to show them that they have power to fix said situation, and they have the tools in their toolbox. They just need to figure out how to use it, versus the opposite gender seems to react better to things happen to you. It's not your fault.
Being valuable. Yep.
Yeah.
Being able to push your value away from the things that happen to you.
Yes.
And that's what I think that's the answer is, guys, you have to feel some sort of power and ability to fix it, which is why the accountability worked. And females, they're not going to feel valuable or okay until they feel like they are disconnected from the situation, regardless of how bad it is. That situation is not you. You don't have to feel like the only answer to that situation is you. And that's kind of how you have to look at it.
And the powerlessness dynamic also applies totally different fork in the conversation. Weird. But it also applies to more general life situations, like a man and wife will have a baby, and a lot of the woman's attention goes to baby. A lot of the work and everything in the household goes to baby. And husband tries to chip in and say, let me do this. And the wife, in a very anxiety-fueled, controlled way, says, no, let me do that. Whatever that is. I know the proper way to do it. Just sit over there, please. I got it. Well, let me go out and buy that. You bought the wrong thing. I need this and this. It has to be very specific. So the wife very much controls situation, a lot of attention, sex, intimacy goes bye-bye, all kinds of not so good things. And the man feels completely powerless in the relationship. And a lot of men become depressed at this new dynamic in the relationship.
A crazier part of that I learned when I developed my neck problem was in worker comp cases, 80% end in divorce. Whether that's the money or the change in how things work. Like, think I came home to a house with 2 kids and my wife ended up getting pregnant in the time that I was injured before my surgery. It's like that entire house dynamic is different because guys will either jump in and try and change everything because they can see somebody's overwhelmed, or they try and jump in and help. So that way it's not as much of a load on them. And it's like, or you're being a couch potato and you need help. And that's more work on them to begin with. It's crazy to hear some of those statistics because it's like nobody wants to accept change. And that's, I think, the bigger issue in a lot of this is nobody wants to accept change. It's all a problem.
It's funny you mentioned that number, the 80%. I don't have the facts to back this up, but this is the number that I heard. Bariatric surgery like stomach stapling and, for the dramatic weight loss, they will often tell the patients or the couple, let's say it's the woman getting the surgery, they'll bring the man and woman in and say, just so you know, you guys need to sign this piece of paper here that says you recognize that after you do the surgery, the chances of your divorce just like doubled.
Yeah. I believe it's like 55 or 65%, if I remember correctly. My mom ended up trying to go for bariatric surgery. And that was one of the problems that she was like, I'm questioning this. Like, I already don't feel like I'm enough. If I validate myself by doing this and putting this work in and things break still, what am I doing this for? And I'm just like,
for you?
This didn't solve it? Oh, it's over now.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's so weird kind of looking at those things because I did hear them. And when I went into my workers' comp case, I was like, yeah, if that's what happens because all of a sudden I get a payout because of a neck injury And, I'm one of those people that will just keep pushing. If I push too hard, like if I didn't have that surgery, I'd be passing out every day. So passing out every day and not having a divorce is better than having nerve migraines once or twice a week. I don't know, man. Nerve migraines are a hell of a lot better than passing out with nerve migraines. There's a big difference.
Yeah, reminds me of in my book, The Dead Bedroom Fix, that there's the beginning of it talks about guys, get yourself in better physical shape, because we have so many men that are morbidly obese and everything else, and then they're wondering why their spouse doesn't have much attraction to them anymore. It's like, well, if it's that may be the case in a relatively small portion of the population, but regardless of whether you have a wife or not, you need to take care of your body, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's being
And it's
morbidly
not a
obese is
number
not
on a
fun.
scale. And that's a lot of what both sides don't understand. It's not, I am 6'1", I need to weigh 200 pounds, or I am 5'10", and I weigh 140 pounds. It's like that number on the scale doesn't matter. If you feel confident in yourself and you're not 350 pounds at 6 foot, and you're not a hulking mass of a butt plug like Grimace, you're okay. You got to kind of impact yourself and do better for yourself. That's how everybody should be. But the job isn't done just because a number on the scale hits. Like it just isn't. And so many people want to be direct and blinded by a number, or I eat this many things, or I can't eat this anymore. Make your life a game. And that's the biggest initiation I would tell anybody, especially incels. If you enjoy gaming, if you enjoy changing the way something works or learning how something works, make your life into a game. It was one of the weirdest things I realized after that neck surgery. They told me that I could die 20% of the time. I was like, okay. I don't feel like I should live anymore then. Like I'm going to go through with the surgery. And if I come out on the other side, you know what? I'm going to have a whole different outlook on life. That level of, holy shit, life could have ended there. That's weird. Stop looking at, oh, well, I have 80 years guaranteed. No, you don't. And the more things you put against that, the more likely you are to end before that. Not telling you not to live your life, but if you live your life in I'm going to run zero risk, you're not going to enjoy it. And if you run your life in 100% risk, it's probably going to end pretty highly. So you have to live it like it's a throwaway account, because at what point are you not going to be okay with life? You're going to end up 40 and being like, I have to have a midlife crisis? No, my life almost ended at 27.
Yeah. And to your anxious guys out there, we're talking about self-improvement type of things, getting better. Don't frame them in terms of what will everyone else think of me, because that's what I hear from men that go on a self-improvement journey of looking better, acting better, and so forth. My wife is going to think I'm cheating on her. That makes me hesitate to do that. Are you cheating on her? No. Do you really go through your whole life thinking worried about what somebody else is thinking? It's like, so what if she leaves me? Well, then she left you because you got better. I don't understand what the problem is here.
Exactly. And self-confidence and that inconsistency and how they feel towards you or towards your relationship should never be connected. If they have a self-confidence issue towards your relationship, guess whose it is to hold? It's not yours. Their self-consciousness or anything like that, you cannot impact it. You can't. And a lot of people will disagree with that. A lot of people will say, oh, well, it's your job to fix it. No, it's not your job to fix it. It's my job to fix me. It's your job to fix you. And we come together at the end and make sure things are okay. It's not my job to fix your inconsistencies or fears. Your self-consciousness is completely on you. If you don't feel like you're enough because I'm working out, if you don't feel like you're enough because I'm doing this or doing that, then guess what? You're not enough. Fix it. It's not my job to go down to your level. It's your job to come up.
But what is so heartbreaking for the guy or gal who goes through that self-improvement kick is they look across the table and the other person is not making a move. And it's out of fear. It's out of self-loathing.
I went through all
it's
of
out
this
of
for
just
you.
Pure laziness, whatever it may be. And they don't move an inch because the other person doesn't value the relationship enough, the partner enough to say, well, let me jump on board here. No, they're just like, no, why should I? It's like,
and I think you've probably heard this sentence a lot. And I've heard it a lot. I look across and I see that they didn't want to do anything. And I'm like, what did I do this for? You're not doing it for them. You're
Wrong
not.
mindset. Yeah.
You're doing it to make sure that you're able to pick up your kids and you're able to pick up your grandkids and hopefully your great grandkids. You're doing it for every other person that you're impacting in the world, not because you sit behind a computer and you're 500 pounds. Like there is a difference, and there can be a difference. You should have to live for more than just the baseline, what's right in front of you. You have an impact on more people than you realize. Everybody does. Like, do you know how weird it is to see the numbers continually growing past 100,000 views a month? That number is weird by itself. Like, and I'm one of those people. I'm one of those anxious people that's like, okay, well, I'm trying to do better for everybody. And it's like, okay, why does everybody give a fuck what a dumb white motherfucker has to say from upstate New York? I'm just some dipshit online. But for some reason, you're listening. 250,000 views last month. This month, it looks like we're going to clear 350,000. Some dipshit with no viewers commented, haha, you think that's a lot. And it's like, dude, you screenshot it and then posted it on Twitter. And guess how many likes and views it got? 5. What are you talking about? What? I'm overachieving, buddy. You're underachieving. It's like you're hiding behind an
You're not
anime
Mr.
picture.
Beast, so you failed. Like,
yeah.
And as you guys climb, those it goes right along with it. The comments from the idiots.
Exactly.
It just And so it just. I mean, I can't. How many times I've been called baldy? I'm a toe. I'm a thumb. It's like, do I know you?
I'm thoroughly surprised you haven't bought like the scrubs that Mr. Clean has, and just do a skit
I
like
should
your
do
Mr.
a whole
Clean.
Mr. Clean thing. They called that many times. Thank you.
Don't take that personally. It's just being lighthearted.
No, it's
or
oh yeah. So
the
before
doctor from all the incel porn.
Before the episode started, you even like went like, "Oh, cool, nice choker." The amount of comments we get where it's like, "I'm not listening to some fucker that's wearing a dog collar." You know, we get those every time we post.
It's like that dipshit furry on the other side of the screen has accomplished more than you and your parents and probably your grandparents ever have. He's made more money than all of them, more than likely. And you're saying, oh, I won't listen. Okay, have fun. Have fun. I don't care.
And it's because like they instilled in you that attitude of just like judge a person by their appearance, regardless of like what their intentions or like what the meaning behind what they do is. It's like, cool. You're just going to perpetuate that cycle that we've been talking about for the last hour and a half.
The funny thing is you're a paradox even in that. You're a furry, sure, but you have more conservative views than most conservatives actually do. And that to me is hilarious because they're like, oh, well, I would agree with his views, but he's wearing a dog collar. The fuck's your problem here, buddy? It makes no fucking sense. It really doesn't. And that goes right back, and it goes right back to the level of degeneracy. And we had that conversation probably like 2 months ago. As the world gets more and more degenerate, weird things are becoming like, oh, that's common now. Why is that common? Why are we wearing what our sexuality is on our forehead and saying, this is me? It's like, guys, you could be a better person than just saying, hey, I'm straight, or hey, I'm gay. Like, it doesn't just have to be that. You can be a person. You can be a human. Like, why isn't that okay? I don't understand. I really don't.
Everybody, I think it's human nature to want to belong to a tribe of some kind. I'm a whatever, fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to, pair off.
It boils you down, and it's just like,
yeah, of course.
It's so frustrating because so many more people have so much more to give than just that.
It doesn't seem like if that's like they make that their personality online, because like that's what a social media profile gives you. It gives you that billboard. Say, here's everything about me. Come subscribe or come join in on what I'm advertising, and that's all they have to say about themselves.
Well, my biggest cringe currently is one of those things, and these people thoroughly fucking piss me off because it's the most condescending, retarded bullshit ever. It's these motherfuckers that are like, I'm child free, and I'm like, who cares? You chose not to have a kid. Why are you judging everybody else that wants to have a kid as an idiot? Because you don't want to have one. And all of their choices of I don't want to have a kid are the most selfish things you could ever imagine. It's not, oh, I'm going to give to my nieces and nephews and make sure that their life is even better. It's not, I'm going to make sure my parents' life is even better. It's, oh, I can go get whatever snacks I want at Costco. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
European vacation instead of Disney.
And the inverse of that, though, is when we see those people, you don't attack them online and saying, you selfish piece of shit, you need to procreate. I'm just like, whatever floats their boat. If they want to go get the Costco snacks, whatever.
Yeah, go get your Costco snacks. You could do that regardless of whatever the fuck your reasons are.
And you don't have to post it on social media.
Yes. Oh, no, you removed yourself from the gene pool. What shall we do? It's okay, cool.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just shut up, people. Like, the fuck's your problem? Oh, you can go to Costco and get whatever big pack of candy you want. Okay, go make it so way nobody wants to procreate with you. You're self-defeating yourself, and that's how you became an incel. It's crazy, man. That is such a cringe to me, and I don't know why. It may be because I'm more conservative minded in that way.
Well, also your father, like everything I've heard about like parenthood is like once you have the kid, everything changes. You realize it's not about you anymore.
Nope. Did you feel that, Ralph? That everything, like that total flip where you had a kid and all of a sudden it was like, okay, now it's no longer just me.
No, I think not as much as what some other people attest to, probably because I was an only child, pretty independent kid. And so I always valued my independence and always wanted to have my own little thing. But I'd tell you probably after we had, we moved, had kid, everything just happened. There was like a 10-year period of time where so much happened. Then had a second kid. And then the third kid was unexpected. I was just caught in this machine and I very much lost my sense of self and everything else. But that wasn't a conscious decision of must lose self. It just kind of happened. And I became less of a person as a result and wasn't in a very good spot. And the marriage ended horribly.
And I bet you that other than like large milestones, you have no memories of most of that.
Oh no, it was a blur, complete blur.
Everything is.
Yeah.
It just blur, gone. Oh fuck, that was 5 years. It doesn't change like that for men. And generally, let me say that. It doesn't change like that for men generally at all. The only time that it changes like that is when you are needed in that problem to a different level than you were expecting. So when my baby was born and she was put in the NICU, my wife was still in surgery. I made all of those decisions. I stood there with her the entire time while she was under incubation until she left the hospital to go to a different hospital to be incubated again. I was with her the entire time. I made all of those choices. I watched the oxygen spike when I came back every time that I walked away. It felt like that kid knew that I was there and there was a difference that I was making towards her life at that point. That is when you feel like a direct impact on who you are as a person that is different than just going through and living life day to day. Like, oh, I'm going to baseball. Oh, this kid wants me for this or that. Those things don't change you. They don't. You're still yourself. You're still that person. What changes you is when you're needed to a level that you weren't expecting to be needed at. And that could be your first kid. That could be minute one because your significant other dies on the table, or it could be never at all. You're just dad, and you're kind of seen as a second-class citizen to everybody in the situation. It depends on how much your impact is you letting yourself actually impact the situation. And that's where I think it gets hard because a lot of people try and correlate that to, oh, well, this kid came then and then I changed. No, you didn't. You didn't change. You're still the same person. You still fuck up in the same ways. You still accept alcohol. You still do this. You still do that. You change when you want to change and when you see that there should be a change. Amen. That correlation hurts people, though. So obviously, we've had all of these conversations about, how to fix ourselves, mental health, ADHD, all of these crazy things. But what are your red flags that you looked for after your first marriage that you're like, I can't do this thing I fucked up with. This is how I needed to look at things differently. How did you look at trying to change and kind of better yourself?
Maybe it's a little unfair and I don't want to cast a bad light on the ex in this way, but she was kind of the model for some stuff to avoid. So,
yeah. Well, everybody is.
And
that's what those situations happen.
Yeah,
it ended for a reason.
Exactly. And she was somewhat of an avoidant person, meaning she wasn't open to a lot of intimacy. She was very independent in that way. And so she wasn't Miss Public Display of Affection, hand holding, cuddling, blah, blah, blah. And I was. The anxious and the avoidance tend to attract each other.
Yep.
And so I definitely wanted to be with somebody who was more like me in that way, more open, more loving, sweet, cuddly, touching. That's the way I was raised. Physical person, and not only that, an emotional person, and you know, talk for hours type of person. That's who I am. Friends, whoever, and but at the same time, my future partner, and I did end up remarrying again, had pretty big shoes to fill in terms of I was looking for a person who was that way, but I also am attracted to typically like type A smart women, driven women, women that have a mission. The type of woman that's going to be like, I'm getting up at 5 so I can go on my morning jog, so I can come back and do my yoga in time to get a shower and go to work, and you know, that type of thing. If it's a lady who's just like, oh, I don't know, I'll Netflix today or something, I'm like, it's not the most attractive thing in the world to me.
That's always weird, those differences.
Yeah.
In people, like, and you don't realize what they are until you actually are with somebody different, like whether it's a day, a date, an entire session of conversation or whatever. You are attracted to one type of those people, and the other looks really fucking weird when you don't, when they're not that, and it's weird.
So my
not to cut your train of thought, but
my now wife and I, the courtship process of dating and so forth was almost 4 years before we got hitched. So I really put her through the ringer of I want to see what this gal's really all about, and same with her. And she's a physician. She's a pediatric surgeon, so she cuts up little kids for a living. She's from Germany. So it took me finding a pediatric surgeon all the way from Germany. She's half Indian. So I tend to like, you know, people of interesting ethnic backgrounds, hard worker, yet open, emotionally vulnerable. And she has a therapist she goes to see every day. So she's very open about these things. And I love her to death. And it's worked out really, really well. Now, people always ask, they've seen us together, like at some events and stuff. What's the secret? How did you find somebody that was such a great match for you and everything else? And I say probably 90% of it was dumb luck. If I'm going to be honest. I would love to say I had a magic formula and I was going out there and this is the steps I took to find Mrs. Right. No, she just fell in my lap and put her through the ringer. And I said, hot damn, that actually is somebody I want to spend time with. And away we go. That's basically it.
I think that kind of shows like red flags are customizable because everyone's different. Where like everyone's looking like, what's a red flag? What do I need to avoid? What do I need to not show in myself to turn off other people? It's like, that's how you try to find the right person. It's like, it's going to be about you. It's going to be like, wait a second.
No,
this happened
selfish.
In my past.
That's narcissistic.
Yeah, it's like,
you
this
can't think
happened
about yourself.
This happened in my past. It's like, oh, that was something that I tend to want to avoid in a relationship now. So that's what you want to look for. So it's about the experience with the red flags. And you talking about how she just fell in your lap. I think that's another weird thing social media has done in like relationship to divorces and people not getting along, where like it used to be, oh, you married your high school sweetheart just because that's what happened. It still leads to divorce because small dating pool, not enough people to find the right person. But then social media, I think, overshoots that, where it's like, oh, I think I found the perfect girl 10 states away. We met on Twitter or while gaming or in our hobby, but it's like, no, she's still crazy and wasn't right for you. So there's kind of like how the Earth is in the Goldilocks zone. Like social media takes us too far, and then talent takes us too close. So there's no formula to hit this.
And that's where it gets really fucking weird because I don't know. After me and my wife separated, it was a weird place. Like I only felt fully connected to her for such a long time that it was just, I was looking for that level of connection.
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
And I ended up talking to 2 people throughout that entire time. And one of them I felt more connected to than I've ever, and it changed my perception of everything. Like it made me question the entire past because this specific thing felt so different, so real. And I felt connected not only in a person to person level, but also a mental level and an emotional level that I never felt. And that to me is weird because I didn't expect that to change. I didn't expect, okay, well, this is affected in this way and that's affected in this way. And this person changed my entire perception of everything. And it's like, if I made a slightly different decision at 15, that's my life. That level of comfort, that person is different now. It's like, that's weird to me.
A couple, couple of thoughts there. One is you're illustrating just how malleable we are as human beings when it comes to our relationships with others. A nefarious version of what you're talking about would be, I'm in a marriage. It's boring. It's not terrible, but it's nothing to write home about, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm talking to this guy or gal at work and we really click. And something's really magical about this person. And it causes me to question everything. Have I ever felt this way before? Yep. Is my entire life up to this point been a sham?
And Mother Nature neurotypical people struggle with it. But the thing is yes. The more trauma that there is in that situation, the more likely that emotional affair is to happen. Mm-hmm. So now that I finally had this conversation with my son, I struggled. I thought, so when my son was conceived, I just got out of high school. It was either prom night, graduation night. They're about 2 weeks apart. It's kind of consistent with it being there. And I thought she cheated. I thought that something happened and there was problems. There was questions of, is this my kid? And she since has said that to him, that I didn't believe he was mine and I didn't want him and everything else. And I had to have that conversation with him, which was hard. But during that entire time, I started working. After he was born, I found out he was mine, and I felt more attached to him at that point because it was like everything's clear. But that inconsistency and that uncomfort in the relationship didn't just go away because she didn't validate that it was a question. She used it as a ploy to attack almost. It was like, oh, why could you ever think I would do that? It's not the fact that it's my insecurity in the situation. I needed to be heard and say, okay, well, I understand that you're insecure. I didn't. It will be okay. And then you don't butt heads over it. But we ended up butting heads over it for a year almost. And I ended up developing this crazy level, not even crazy level, this attachment to this one girl that I worked with. And I would help her at work. I would make sure that she's taken care of, like if we went to go get lunch or whatever. And didn't even really have a physical attachment to her, but just pretty girl and just sort of attached. Just like it's nice to have that interaction. Obviously, she probably felt it too, but never really had that conversation of something happening. But it was weird because it was so easy to kind of just fall into of like, okay, well, this person's being more kind. This person's not beating me over the head of every little insecurity and every little problem. And I think that's why so many people develop those attachments is like, oh, I'm not getting beat over the head with how I didn't take out the trash and put the toilet seat down. And it's not this big argument of, oh, I'm going to scream and cry because my insecurities tell me because you left the toilet seat up and there's something on the toilet that obviously you jerked off in the bathroom. It's like, no, that's not what happened. You're being insecure. And it's like dealing with that at 19 is so different than dealing with it today, I think. And I think so many people don't really have the mental capacity to understand and see how things work because they do get attached. I did. I'm sure a lot of people did.
Oh, yeah. You talked about the neurotypicals. The neurotypicals tend to fall fast and hard for people and deal with rejection not very well at all. They take rejection very, very, very hard. So when somebody says, I think we need some time apart or whatever, it completely rocks your world. While there are people in the world that just say, yeah, I understand, shake hands, we'll go our separate ways. Everything's cool. It's not your typical anxious type dude that I deal with or your neurotypical.
No, I'd rather you punch me in the face hard enough to the point where I see that there's a problem. Show me that it's over. This whole breaking up on easy terms, that shit, nope. You're gonna leave too much validation in my mind that it's still gonna be okay.
A common phrase I hear from men is, I'll be talking to this guy and he'll tell me all these things going on in his marriage. And a lot of it makes me go, uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. And I say, I said, not to be too cynical or too negative here or to fuel the anxious fire, but have you considered that maybe there's another person, another person in the picture here, like she's cheating? And the guy will say, I thought the same thing, but I dug through her phone. I hired a private investigator and there's nothing.
Now
there.
I'm insecure because now I feel like there is already.
And there's nothing there. But here's the kicker. They say, but I sometimes wish there was. Because at least it would give me the final aha to detach from her. And then I can tell the whole society, all of my circle of friends and everybody else, look, I had to leave her. I mean, look what she did. She's the bad guy here. But he's been dealing with 10, 20 some odd years of verbal abuse, awfulness, all these kinds of terrible things, but it's just not enough. He needs that one more little bit of aha thing to sever the tie.
Well, it seems like those things, most guys don't want to talk about being abused. Most guys don't want to talk about, oh, I have a crazy wife at home. I have crazy woman syndrome. I'm gonna leave. It's just like those guys are seen as assholes. Those guys are seen as douchebags. They are the problem. So how do you not just assume that you're the problem? It's just stating that you're not the problem. People are going to leave regardless. People are not going to believe you regardless. That woman can walk away with every single person. The thing is you have to accept that that's not the problem. The problem is not, oh, she's going to walk away. It doesn't matter if she walks away. It doesn't matter if every person walks away. You have to be some level of secure in yourself. That's why I'll tell everybody, there's a level that you need to have in your relationship, and it's a level most people are uncomfortable with. If you touch my phone, you're out the door. Not because I'm doing something on my phone, not because I'm doing something wrong. I will not live my life in the level of I have to watch every single word I type in a phone. That's not going to make you insecure. If you feel that insecure that you have to watch every single thing I do not want a helicopter parent. I don't want those problems. I'd rather you walk out the door and be happy. If you're insecure to that level, you then sit there and deal with it.
That's the old boundaries. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of difficulty with that. And you pointed out the whole crazy wife thing. It's kind of like a reverse Uno sexist thing on a guy's part, where they will deal with all kinds of really unhealthy, dysfunctional behavior on the part of their spouse simply because she's a girl. That's what they do sometimes. Tee-hee, oh, well.
Yep.
It's like, no, time out. What she did was really, really bad. She needs some help here, buddy.
Yep.
My girlfriend did the same. My mom did the same. This isn't good.
And they get validated.
Yeah, and then
those
society's
women,
like, crazy women.
And now those women are told that they're right. Oh, he abused you. He was controlling you. That was the craziest thing in my divorce. In this entire situation, I was told that I was controlling. You want to know how I was controlling? I said she should not drink alcohol and work because in this situation, she has a back disease and she's blind and she was on disability. Don't work. Let me take care of it. Let me take the energy of dealing with the situation. You can't. It's okay. Let me figure it out. That's controlling. Then her mental illness. She was taking medication and everything else. And it's like, okay, no drinking, none. No, not even a choice to go to the liquor store. You cannot drink. You have medications that you have to take daily. There is no choice here. Let me be the accountability buddy of the life. And it's okay. It's okay. That's seen as control now. That's seen as, oh, he's an asshole. He's narcissistic. He's controlling.
Manipulative.
Yeah. And it's like, I just wanted you not to die because you drank and took medication. Where the fuck is that controlling? That's so stupid. It's so stupid. So many people want to just label and push away people because, oh, you fit this narrative. You're just like my dad. It's like your dad was the person that was trying to fix you then. It's like, come on now.
Childhood baggage is everything. If it's one thing we've learned from the last couple hours.
Yeah.
Colors everything. Yeah, absolutely.
It really does. Well, Ralph, I know I only said till 4. I can see you're looking at the time.
Yeah, gotta get going.
Boys, thank you guys so much for coming, watching us. Ralph, make sure everybody goes and checks out Ralph. His content's going to be amazing. He's going to keep killing it. And hopefully
thank you.
A hell of a lot more together in the future. Thank you so much for coming on. Go check out G Fuel. Use code RMTS for 20% off at checkout. See you guys all next time.
It was fun. Good talk.